In this video, we're taking a look at GoCollect's hottest comics for the week of January 27th. Hot books continue to be hot. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, we're taking a look at GoCollect's hottest comics for the week of January 27th. Now, for those who don't know, GoCollect puts out a weekly article that analyzes the hottest selling comic books based on volume of sales and movement in the market. So like I like to do on Mondays, let's take a look at the list and see what's trending. But before I get into the books, if you guys could drop me a like or comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, help support the channel, doing one of those things, I would appreciate it. But let us get into this article here today. Of course, this article is written by Matt Tuck. I will put a link in the description. But of course, I will give you guys my analysis here today. And we got a cool list to talk about, some big books and some ones that you guys are, of course, going to be very, very familiar with. And starting in the number 5 spot, I think it's going to be a book that everybody knows this one. And that's going to be Giant Size X-Men #1, up 40 spots, sitting in the 39th spot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, you guys know this is the first appearance of the new X-Men team comprised of Storm, Colossus, and Nightcrawler. This is also, of course, the first appearance of Thunderbird and what many people consider the second full appearance of Wolverine. And this right here is just one of the all-time holy grails of the Bronze Age. Of course, the new X-Men team. This has been a book that has been totally hot in the market. And a lot of people, of course, are jumping on this thing in anticipation of the X-Men eventually making their way into the MCU. Now, I think it's really interesting that this book has shown up on this list this week. And as Matt points out in the article, there's been a lot of rumors and speculation that, we're going to maybe start to see our first signs of the X-Men in the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness film. I mean, currently the rumors right now is that Patrick Stewart is going to be showing up as Professor X in that film. Now, it's all conjecture, it's all rumors, but if that is the case, I mean, that will definitely be the first confirmed mutants in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And for a long time, all of the X-Men books, over the course of this last year or two have been really hot in the market, especially Giant Size X-Men #1. And actually, this book has had a recent correction in the market, in these last winter months of December or Q3, Q4 of 2021. And I feel like because this book has sort of hit those corrections and hit those new floors, that's one of the reasons why, people are starting to swoop this thing back up, start to jump back onto this book. And one of the reasons why it could be showing up on this list here today. And as we dig into the numbers, we will see that that is actually going to be the case. So 9.8 fair market values for this thing, sitting around the $56,000 range. But you can see the 30-day moving average is only 48,000. Only 48,000. Swaggle House, why don't you go buy one? But the 1-year average is 50,000. But then we go here down to the bottom, say at the 2.0 grade, we can see that the fair market value for that is around 2,100. But then the 30-day moving average, like here at the 2.5, is actually 1,460. So it feels like this book got really hot, coming off the heels of the 2021 boom, right around April or so when every comic book was absolutely going to the moon. And then here it's sort of had its big correction later in 2021 in Q4. And now it seems like there's a lot of opportunity to buy back into this book. So if you look at the 4.0 grade here, 3,300 fair market value, 30-day moving is 2,838. It feels like this book is now selling under market, and a lot of people are seeing it as an opportunity to buy back in. So when we focus in on the chart here, you can see that back in 2020, this thing was going around the $1,300 range, had that huge spike up all the way into June of 2021, selling at $3,664, and then had its big kind of drop off right here in the $2,400 range. And then we kind of go back up to now where people are getting this at $2,837. So you can see this thing had basically a 40% correction. And then now, when people see those floor numbers, that sort of motivates people to jump back on this book. And you can see the last couple sales, 2,800, 2,875. So, a lot of people love this book right here, Giant Size X-Men #1. And it definitely seems like once we get characters like Storm and Colossus and Nightcrawler in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this book will definitely be hitting all new record highs. So maybe now is the time to buy. All right, let's go on now to the 4th hottest comic of the week. And the 4th hottest comic of the week is actually a book that was on our list not too long ago, I think 2 weeks ago. And this one, of course, is Darth Vader #3, up 42 spots. And now it sits at the #6 spot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, you guys know this is the first appearance of the character known as Dr. Aphra written by Kieran Gillen, that came out in 2015. Now, Dr. Aphra, kind of a comic book collector's favorite character. It feels like this character is really admired within the Star Wars comic book collector space. And there's been so much speculation that she was going to be showing up as soon as, the Book of Boba Fett. And it feels like in the last few weeks, this book has always showed up on a recent hot list. I mean, we had talked about the first issue of this series, Star Wars Darth Vader #1, that had the first appearance of Black Chrysanthemum. That book obviously took a spike when we got him in Book of Boba Fett. So a lot of people kind of still anticipating that Dr. Aphra is going to show up. And it feels like with every week, with every episode, when she doesn't show up, people are thinking like, oh, okay, now's the time to buy. Maybe she's going to show up next week. And then it's like, oh, okay, now's the time to buy. Maybe she's going to show up the next week. And who really knows when and if she's going to show up. But if she does show up in, like, say, the next episode or the season finale or whatever the case may be in a cameo, this thing will definitely skyrocket to the moon. It feels like a lot of people are already, jumping on this thing. But if she doesn't show up in the show, it'll be interesting to see if people lose their patience with this book. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll see that the 9.8s are selling fair market value around the $425 range, but you can see 30-day moving average around the $504 range. Last couple sales for this thing, we can see 480, 575 slash price, basically 500 here, 533 here. And you can see how the chart, was higher in May of last year, or was high in May of last year. And then it kind of took its big correction. And then now that we got Book of Boba Fett, this thing has really, really shot up and is basically rivaling, the present dollar value metrics we see here. I mean, there is a record high sale here of 515, but if we correct this back down to what it was a year ago, we see 508. So this book has set a new record high in this calendar year because of the anticipation of this character showing up in the Book of Boba Fett. All right, let's go on now to the third hottest comic of the week. And the third hottest comic of the week is one that I cannot believe this book has shown up on this list. Of course I can believe this book has shown up on this list, but this one, of course, is Werewolf by Night, number 32, up 43 spots, now sitting in the 55th spot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, you guys know this is the first appearance of the character known as Moon Knight. Now, Moon Knight, of course, we got the first official trailer for the show, and it is now confirmed that this will be the first Marvel Disney Plus show to come out this year in March. And when this trailer came out, everybody went bananas. I mean, right now, I think it is known that this trailer is the most liked Marvel trailer they've ever had on their YouTube channel. I mean, we've actually talked about this as far as like last week is concerned, because we had talked about Moon Knight #1. That book, of course, also shot up in the market, but now we're seeing Werewolf by Night, Moon Knight's first appearance, making its way onto the list. And this thing has been, scorching hot. Now, I made a video the other week talking about if now was the time to buy this book. And I talked about, some of those entry points and some of those prices that I think would be a safe bet for, a book like this. And let me just tell you right now, nobody is watching my video, nobody is listening to me, because everybody is buying this book at values that are above that. And I understand, FOMO is one hell of a drug. So we will see what happens with the values of this book once we get the show and after the show, and see where it sits in the market. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll see that the current values for it sit around the fair market value at the 9.8 grade, around the $92,000 range. Of course, there's only 19 books on the census, but 9.4's fair market value sits around the $13,500 range. Although 30-day moving average is only at the $10,000 range, as Matt points out in the article, to me that still feels like a dangerous number when I compare it to Giant Size X-Men #1 and Hulk 181, but hey, to each their own. Here we see at the 7.0 range, 2,600 fair market value, but 30-day moving, 2,700, so it's above that of the fair market value. And then look here at the lower end of the spectrum, 3.0, fair market value $1,300 range, but 30-day moving 1,600. So definitely been a hot book in the market, has been moving up, and it'll be interesting to see if this hits a new record high, the week that we get the show. All right, let's go on now to the second hottest comic of the week. And the second hottest comic of the week is actually a book that showed up on our list last week. So a lot of the hot books on this Go Collect list are continuing to be hot, but this one, of course, is X-Men #1, up 54 spots and now sitting in the 7th slot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, you guys know this is the first issue of the X-Men run that came out in 1992 by Jim Lee. And this book right here just seems to be like a book that people continue to want to have in their collection. Just a collector's book in terms of it just being, something that is just sort of good to fill one of your boxes. I mean, it's never going to, pay for your retirement. It's never necessarily going to go to the moon, so to speak, but it is something that I feel like like all collectors want to have in their collection. And maybe one of the reasons that, this book has gotten hot recently in the market is due simply to the fact that, like we talked about with Giant Size X-Men #1, the multiverse of madness speculation with having the X-Men character show up has got people, thinking about X-Men. Now, kind of like what we talked about last week, it does feel like the Magneto cover does command a premium over that of the other comparable variant covers. But one thing that's really interesting to me is that, the cover A for this, which I believe is the Cyclops and Wolverine cover, that one has a spread in it, a centerfold, and in that centerfold, it actually has a cameo appearance of Omega Red. So when we talk about speculative values for this book, it does seem to me that the cover A with Cyclops and Wolverine would be the one that most people in the market would want, because technically speaking, that does actually have the first appearance of Omega Red, even before that of X-Men #4, if you happen to be on the cameo side of the cameo versus first full appearance debate. And as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll see that there are 9.8s, 6,395 on the census. Fair market value for those around the $120 range, but you can see 30-day moving average at the 132 level. So it definitely feels like this book has been hot. You can see like this chart right here, I think is really interesting. Back in April or May of 2021, you can see present day dollar value was selling around the $188 range, and it definitely had a big correction, but now it's sort of like, hitting that floor and bouncing back up. So we had it all the way down to 112, but now it's sort of trending upward. And this could be, kind of like what we talked about with the Giant Size X-Men #1. A lot of people were jumping on those X-Men books, and then they got ahead of themselves. And once they sort of corrected back down to that floor, people are thinking that this is a good opportunity to buy back into this book. And that could be one of the reasons why this one has shown up on the list this week. All right, and let's now go on to the hottest comic of the week. And the hottest comic of the week is a book that has actually been the hottest comic of the week not too long ago. And this one, of course, is Star Wars #42, up 60 spots, now sitting in the 37th spot. And what is the significance of this? Well, of course, you guys know this is the first appearance of Boba Fett in comic book form, traditional comic book form. It is also the first full appearance of Yoda in comic book form. But we know why this book is hot currently in the market, and that is due to the Book of Boba Fett playing on Disney Plus. Now, this book right here definitely seems to be a hot book in the market, whether people want to buy this thing because they're watching Book of Boba Fett, whether people want to sell this thing because they're trying to capitalize on Book of Boba Fett, whatever the case may be, it definitely seems to be a book that transacts at a high volume in the market. Now, it's interesting to think about how a lot of people haven't really loved the Book of Boba Fett show. And I do think that it is fair to say that it hasn't quite lived up to the level of The Mandalorian. But that hasn't really slowed anyone down from wanting to jump on this book. And people are still thinking that this is a good book to have in the market. But as we dig into the numbers for this one, we'll see that the book sells around the fair market value of the $3,500 range at the 9.8 grade, 30-day moving average around the $3,300. So not necessarily at fair market value, but not too far away from where it once was at its 1-year moving average, which is 3,600. We can see this book took the meteoric rise in Mandalorian season 2 all the way to present day dollar value of $44.84, and then kind of had its little bit of its correction, took a big jump back up due to the fact that we were anticipating the show, and now is also sort of sloping down once again. Last couple sales for this thing, 3,200, 38.40. Maybe someone got a 2,500 one, but this is a one bid eBay auction. Doesn't seem like that was a real sale. 3,700 right here, 42.99, 4,000 right there, 3,800. So definitely seems to be a book that, depending on what kind of deal of the day you can get for it, people will definitely be spending around that $3,200 to $4,000 range, which overall still feels like a strong level for this book. And depending on where the show finishes and how the season wraps up, I do think that that'll determine what the sort of outlook for this book is in the future. Will we have more episodes with Boba Fett later on? Will he have another season? Are they building up to something bigger in the Star Wars universe, like some kind of crossover event film? If they end up doing something like that and they continue to have Boba Fett, utilized, I could see the book eventually hitting new record highs. Anyways, that is all I have for this video. Those were the hottest comics of the week. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys have any of these books? What have you guys been thinking about sort of the X-Men books? I mean, it feels like we got really ahead of ourselves last year with X-Men, and now people are starting to jump back onto those books and those keys. Let me know what you guys think. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next video.